All right, so today we're really diving deep into Kazuo Ishiguro's The Remains of the Day.
Oh, fantastic choice.
We'll be exploring the world of Stevens, a butler,
Stephen.
looking back on his life and using excerpts from the novel itself.
Excellent.
And trust me, this isn't just going to be like a plot recap.
Right.
We're going to go beyond the surface
Yes.
to uncover some really fascinating themes like duty, dignity, regret,
Oh, lots of regret.
and what it truly means to be a great butler.
Yes, that's the core of it, isn't it? What does that even mean?
Exactly.
The great butler.
What makes this novel so compelling is that it's all told through Stephen's eyes, his memories.
Right, it's his narrative, isn't it?
So we're getting
It's
this
very carefully constructed.
very carefully constructed and perhaps even unreliable narrative.
Most definitely.
Okay, so let's set the stage.
Right.
Stevens is on a road trip through the English countryside.
A new experience for him.
It's a new experience for him.
Yes.
Prompted by a letter from a former colleague, Miss Kenton.
Very intriguing right from the start.
Yeah, intriguing. Right away we learned something interesting.
Oh, tell me.
Stevens is surprised by how much of England he hasn't seen.
Right.
Even though he spent his whole life at Darlington Hall serving, the upper crust.
This is crucial, you see.
Yeah.
This detail really highlights how Stevens's entire world has revolved around Darlington Hall.
It's like his whole world.
His identity
Yeah.
values, even memories,
Yeah.
are all filtered through this role as a butler.
So this limited perspective is
Yeah.
really key to understanding the choices he's made, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so this road trip is almost like Stevens stepping outside that bubble for the first time.
He's out in the world.
And then we get this sense of foreboding.
Oh, yes.
Early on, when a stranger tells Stevens he must climb a hill for the view before it's too late.
Before it's too late? What a loaded statement.
Right, which seems like a pretty direct hint
Oh, yeah.
that Stevens is already grappling with regrets.
Absolutely. It sets the tone, doesn't it?
Yeah.
For his entire journey of reflection.
Yeah.
And later on, in Salisbury,
Right.
Stevens is really struck by this restrained beauty of England.
Yeah.
And he contrasts it
Yeah.
with what he calls the unseemly demonstrativeness of other places.
Oh, I love that.
What a phrase.
It's so Stevens.
And this reveals, his deep-seated belief in order, control, and emotional restraint.
It's like he's holding himself.
All qualities that he really values
Yeah.
in his work,
To these impeccable standards.
but also in his life.
Yeah, in his life.
Right.
That he expects in a perfectly run household.
Perfectly run household, exactly.
Which brings us to like a central theme here.
Sure.
Stevens's obsession with what constitutes a great butler.
This is what drives him.
He even references a professional society's definition,
Oh, tell me.
which is dignity in keeping with his position.
Dignity.
But what does that actually mean?
Oh, yeah.
It sounds incredibly stuffy.
Because Stevens interprets dignity
Yes.
as complete emotional detachment,
Oh, wow.
like a robot almost.
That's fascinating.
To see, to him, a great butler never betrays their feelings, never reveals any personal opinions.
It's all about,
It's about embodying the role completely.
embodying the role completely.
He uses his own father as an example,
Oh, interesting.
recounting a story where his father, also a butler,
Right.
dealt with some rude guests simply by standing there,
Oh my gosh.
silent and imposing,
Wow. You mentioned Stevens sees his father's silence as control, and he seems to admire that.
Oh, he admires it.
But couldn't you argue that it's also like a form of powerlessness?
Yes, that's a good point.
Maybe Stevens is misinterpreting his father's actions, seeing strength where there might have been resignation.
That's a fascinating point.
Yeah.
It really makes us question whether Stevens' definition of dignity is actually healthy,
Right.
or if it's just a way of suppressing his genuine emotions. And, it also highlights the book's exploration of these different interpretations
Right.
of what it means to be great.
Mm-hmm.
So for Stevens, it's not just about personal conduct.
It's about more than that.
It's also about serving a morally worthy employer,
Okay.
someone who contributes to, humanity's progress.
So there's this idea that a butler's greatness is somehow tied to the actions of their employer,
Right.
which raises the question, can you be a great butler if you're serving someone who's morally questionable?
Morally questionable, right?
And this leads us to Stevens' former employer, Lord Darlington.
The enigmatic Lord Darlington.
Stevens clearly idolizes him,
Yes, he puts him on a pedestal.
describing himself as being at the, quote, hub of the world's wheel while working at Darlington Hall.
He felt very important, to be part of all that.
Yeah.
Stevens views Lord Darlington as a man of immense importance.
Right.
Someone who is trying to, influence world events for the better.
It sounds like he had the best intentions.
He recounts these gatherings Lord Darlington hosted.
Yeah.
Aiming to prevent another war.
Another war.
Involving these high-profile figures.
Yeah.
Including Herr Ribbentrop, the German ambassador.
Wow. Pre-WWII diplomacy right in the heart of Darlington Hall.
Exactly.
But was Lord Darlington really on the right side of history?
That's the question.
The book seems deliberately ambiguous about his true character.
Very much so. And remember, we're seeing everything through Stephen's eyes.
Yeah.
So it's a very subjective perspective.
Yeah, it's like we're only getting part of the picture.
Okay.
And maybe some pieces are deliberately missing.
Possibly.
We see this tension between Stevens's loyalty
Yes.
and Lord Darlington's potential flaws come to a head in one particular incident.
Tell me about it.
Where a young guest, Mr. Cardinal,
Oh, yes.
voices concern that Lord Darlington is being used by the Nazis. And instead of addressing the issue head-on,
what does Stevens do?
Stevens deflects. He's told to explain to Mr. Cardinal about,
About what?
the geese and the flowers.
The geese and the flowers.
Completely avoiding the real topic.
He avoids the elephant in the room.
Which is almost comical.
Oh, yes.
But also deeply unsettling.
Right.
Stevens chooses to follow orders.
Orders over.
Rather than engage with a legitimate concern.
It makes you wonder.
It makes you wonder. Was he truly blind to his employer's flaws?
Blind
Or was he simply prioritizing duty over everything else?
Prioritizing duty, yes.
That's a tough question.
It really is.
Speaking of complicated relationships,
Oh, yes.
let's finally address the elephant in the room.
Okay.
Miss Kenton and that mysterious letter.
The letter, yes.
Who is she, and why did her letter prompt Stevens to embark on this road trip?
Well, Miss Kenton is a fascinating character.
She is.
And her relationship with Stevens is layered, you see, with all these unspoken feelings and missed opportunities.
Sounds like there's a lot to unpack there.
Oh, there is.
Give us the juicy details.
Well, Stevens remembers an instance where Miss Kenton challenged him about his aging father's ability to perform his duties.
His duties, right?
Of course, Stevens defends his father fiercely.
That sounds familiar.
Yes.
Is this mirroring his unwavering defense of Lord Darlington?
Perhaps.
Is loyalty Stevens' guiding principle, even in his personal life?
It seems to be a recurring theme, doesn't it?
It does.
Loyalty above all else.
Yeah.
Their relationship takes a turn when an argument leads to their evening meetings ending.
Oh, interesting.
And soon after, Miss Kenton leaves Darlington Hall after a personal tragedy.
Okay, now we're getting to the good stuff.
The plot thickens.
It sounds like there are layers of unspoken feelings here.
Mm-hmm.
Did Stevens miss his chance with her?
Maybe.
Is that what prompted this road trip years later?
That's the question that hangs over their eventual reunion.
It does.
Which we'll get into later.
Yes.
It's a poignant, melancholic encounter.
Oh.
We learned Miss Kenton's now married.
Oh.
But there's this palpable sense of what could have been.
What could have been.
Right.
And that feeling of regret ties back to those larger themes of the book.
It all comes full circle, doesn't it?
It really does.
Loss, regret, missed opportunities.
This is all so fascinating.
It is a very rich novel.
I can't wait to see what happens when they finally meet again.
It's a beautiful scene, very moving.
But before we get ahead of ourselves,
right,
let's delve deeper into Stevens' time at Darlington Hall.
Let's go back.
And those complexities of his relationship with Lord Darlington.
Okay, I'm ready.
We'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors.
All right.
So we've established that Stevens is a man, deeply devoted to his role as a butler.
Oh, absolutely.
And he's grappling with some complicated feelings about his past.
Right.
Especially regarding Miss Kenton.
Of course, the letter.
And Lord Darlington. Where do things go from here?
Well, as Stevens continues his journey, he has this rather humorous encounter that shakes him up a bit.
Really?
He runs low on petrol.
Oh, no.
And ends up in a village pub.
Okay.
And he becomes a bit of a spectacle for the locals.
Oh, he's so out of his element.
He really is.
This proper, reserved butler suddenly surrounded by these boisterous, down-to-earth villagers.
What happens?
Well, they engage him in a conversation about dignity. But their understanding of the concept is very different from Stevens' rigid definition.
Oh, I see.
For them, dignity is about self-respect and honesty,
You're right.
not about suppressing emotions or adhering to these strict social codes.
Just like they're holding up a mirror to Stevens, forcing him to confront the limitations of his own worldview.
Yeah, they're basically critiquing him.
And they don't even realize it.
Exactly. And this encounter really highlights the book's exploration of class and social expectations.
Right.
Stevens, so accustomed to the formalities of aristocratic life,
is suddenly confronted with a completely different set of values.
Right. And it seems like this experience, along with his reflections on the past,
Yes.
we're starting to chip away at Stevens's carefully constructed facade.
He's starting to crack.
Yeah. And then to top it off,
What happened?
he has this incredibly poignant encounter.
Oh, yes.
On the pier.
On the pier.
With a man who's crying over a lost friend. And this stranger offers Stevens some simple yet profound advice.
Tell me.
Enjoy the evening.
Okay.
Stop dwelling on the past.
Right.
Embrace the present moment.
Powerful advice.
It really is.
It is.
It's a powerful message about the importance of letting go of regret.
Yeah.
And finding joy in those simple things.
Absolutely.
Is this a turning point for Stevens?
There could be.
Is he finally starting to realize that his rigid adherence to duty and emotional restraint might have cost him some of life's greatest pleasures?
It's possible.
The pier scene is both hopeful and ambiguous.
Yes, it is.
It leaves us wondering if Stevens is truly capable of change.
Can he shed that mask?
Can he shed the mask of the perfect butler?
The perfect butler.
And embrace a more authentic way of being?
Right.
Can he learn to express his feelings?
And connect.
And connect with others on a deeper level?
Big questions.
Those are some big questions.
They are.
And they bring us back to one of the most compelling aspects of the book.
Oh, which is?
Its exploration of the cost of unwavering duty.
Unwavering duty.
Is it truly great to serve without question? Even if your employer is complicit in harmful actions?
Complicit. Right.
We see this tension play out throughout the novel.
Yeah.
Especially in Stevens' memories of Lord Darlington's involvement with appeasement politics and his associations with Nazi sympathizers.
Right.
While Stevens admires Lord Darlington's ambition to prevent another war.
Of course.
He also witnesses firsthand the potential consequences of his naivete.
Yes.
And his willingness to overlook certain warning signs.
It's a difficult position to be in.
It is, and it's not just about Lord Darlington.
Right.
Stevens' dedication to his role often comes at the expense of his own personal happiness and his relationships with others.
Yeah.
His inability to express his feelings for Miss Kenton is a prime example of this.
Absolutely. You know, his dedication to dignity
Right.
prevents him from acting on his desires.
Right.
From taking risks, from being vulnerable.
Yeah.
And this ultimately leads to regret.
Regret.
And a sense of missed opportunities.
So we've explored Stevens's complex relationship with Lord Darlington.
Yes.
And those moral dilemmas he faces.
Moral dilemmas.
We've also delved into his suppressed emotions.
Right.
And his regret over his missed connection with Miss Kenton.
Uh-huh.
But there's another layer to this story that we haven't touched on yet.
Oh, tell me.
Stevens' relationship with his father, also a butler.
The father.
And how that shaped his own understanding of duty and dignity.
Okay, interesting.
Stevens' father is a constant presence in the novel.
A looming figure.
Even though he's no longer alive, Stevens frequently reflects on his father's stoicism.
His stoicism.
His unwavering dedication to service.
Right.
And his ability to maintain composure.
Composure, even.
Even in the face of adversity.
Right.
And Stevens clearly admires these qualities.
He does.
Seeing them as the hallmarks of a great butler.
The ideal butler.
But at the same time, there are these hints of resentment.
Oh, really?
Of a yearning for a more emotional connection with his father. Yeah, and that brings us back to the question of whether Stevens has misinterpreted his father's actions.
Right.
Was his father's silence a sign of strength and control?
Or was it a coping mechanism?
Or was it a form of resignation?
Resignation, yes.
A way of coping with the limitations of his social standing.
It's possible.
It's almost like Stevens is trying to live up to this idealized image of his father.
An idealized image.
Even if that image might not be entirely accurate.
Right.
And that struggle to reconcile his own desires with those expectations placed upon him is something that many of us can relate to.
Oh, absolutely. It's a universal struggle.
It is.
It is.
The novel explores those universal themes of family,
Family.
duty, and the search for identity.
Wow.
And it asks us to consider how our past experiences shape our present choices.
And our future possibilities.
Right. So as Stevens journeys through the English countryside,
He's on journey.
he's also journeying through his own memories,
A parallel journey.
confronting his past choices,
Facing the past.
and wrestling with his deepest regrets.
Oh, if it regret.
And he's not alone in this journey.
Who else is there?
His encounter with Miss Kenton, now married and living a different life,
Right.
brings those regrets to the forefront.
It all comes back to her.
It does.
It does.
Their reunion is filled with unspoken feelings
So much unsaid.
and a sense of what might have been.
What could have been?
It's a poignant reminder that sometimes the most important things in life are left unsaid,
It's true.
and that the choices we make
Or fail to make.
or fail to make can have lasting consequences.
Consequences, yes.
And with that, we'll leave you to ponder Stevens's fate and those implications of his journey.
What will he do?
What will he do with the remains of his day?
The remains of his day.
And what lessons can we learn from his story about the importance of self-reflection,
Self-reflection.
vulnerability,
Right.
and the courage to pursue our own happiness?
Happiness, yes.
We'll delve into those questions and more when we return for the final part of our deep dive into the remains of the day.
Looking forward to it.
So we longed off with Stevens and Miss Kenton.
Yes. Reunited after all these years.
Their conversation's so heavy with, unspoken feelings and a sense of what could have been.
It really is a pivotal moment in the novel.
What struck me was,
You see Stevens struggling to articulate his emotions.
to bridge that gap between his carefully constructed persona and his true feelings.
It's heartbreaking to witness.
It is, because you sense how much is left unsaid, how much both characters have sacrificed in the name of duty and propriety.
All those sacrifices.
It makes you think about those moments in our own lives,
Yes.
those missed connections or opportunities where we held back, maybe out of fear or a sense of obligation.
It's relatable, isn't it?
Do you think Stevens ultimately regrets the path he chose? The life he built for himself at Darlington Hall?
Well, the ending of the book is open to interpretation.
Right.
But there's definitely a sense of melancholy.
Yeah.
A recognition of lost possibility.
Lost possibilities.
Stevens acknowledges that he might have made different choices, but he also seems, resigned to his fate.
So he's made peace with it.
He's decided to focus on perfecting his skills as a butler,
Okay.
finding satisfaction in serving his new employer, Mr. Faraday.
Which raises an interesting question.
Okay.
Is Stevens truly content with this resolution? Or is he simply trying to convince himself that he's made peace with his past?
That's the brilliance of Ishiguro's writing. You see,
yeah.
he leaves us with these lingering questions, forcing us to examine Stevens' motivations.
And draw our own conclusions.
Exactly.
We're left wondering if Stevens is capable of genuine happiness,
True happiness.
or if he'll always be haunted by the ghosts of his past.
Those ghosts, they linger.
And perhaps that's the most powerful takeaway from this book.
What do you think it is?
It's not a simple story with easy answers.
It's more than that.
It's this complex exploration of human nature,
Who we are.
of the choices we make,
The choice.
and the consequences we live
A
with.
consequence.
And it challenges us to confront our own regrets, our own missed opportunities.
And find meaning.
And to find meaning and purpose in the face of those realities.
It's a powerful message.
One detail that stands out in that final scene is Stevens's observation of the pier light switching on at dusk.
Oh, yes.
He finds beauty and solace in this simple act.
Beauty and solace.
This fleeting moment of connection and hope. It suggests that even in the twilight of his life,
Even then.
Stevens is still capable of experiencing joy and finding meaning in the world around him.
That's a beautiful image.
It is.
And it offers a glimmer of optimism.
Yeah.
Amidst the novel's, overall sense of sadness.
Sadness.
It reminds us that even in the face of regret and loss,
Yeah.
there's always beauty to be found in the present moment.
The present moment.
In those simple things that make life worth living.
And perhaps that's the ultimate message of the remains of the day.
What is it?
It's never too late to appreciate those small moments of grace, to find connection with others,
Connection.
and to embrace the possibility of change and renewal.
Change and renewal.
This deep dive has only scratched the surface of this incredibly rich and thought-provoking novel.
Oh, there's so much more.
We've explored Stephen's journey of self-discovery, his complex relationships,
Complicated relationships.
and those moral dilemmas he faces.
The dilemmas.
But there's so much more to uncover.
Oh, absolutely.
If you're looking for a book that will stay with you long after you finish reading it, a book that will challenge your assumptions and make you think deeply about the choices we make in life,
A book to make you think.
I highly recommend picking up The Remains of the Day.
It's a must-read.
And if this deep dive has sparked your curiosity,
Oh, I hope so.
be sure to share your thoughts and insights with us on social media.
Let us know.
We'd love to hear your perspectives on Stephen's journey, his choices, and those lingering questions this book raises.
All those questions.
Until next time, keep diving deep.
Keep diving.
Keep exploring.
Keep exploring.
And keep those conversations going.
Keep talking.